Jai Hind, everyone. General Bipin Rawat, the Chief of the Defence Staff of the Indian Armed Forces, Air Marshal Arora, Vice Chief of the Army Staff, Air Marshal B.R. Krishna, Director General Air Operations, General Naresh Chand, former Director General Army Air Defence, General K.V. Jauhar, ADG Army Design Bureau, flag officers, general officers. We also have former CNC of the Southwestern Command, Daljit Singh, former DGs, soldiers, sailors, air warriors, members of scientific community, industry, academia, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Center for Joint War Studies and Indian Military Review, I welcome each one of you to this 3-day seminar or webinar on air and missile defense, which is also a virtual exhibition. Thank you so very much for joining. My special thanks to General Bipin Rawat, the Chief of the Defence Staff, Air Marshal H.S. Arora, Vice Chief of the Army Staff, and the DG Air Operations who have taken time out from the busy schedules, very hectic schedules I must say, and they are here despite of what we know is happening along our northern borders. This is indicative of the importance of this webinar, Air and Missile Defense 2020. We are all aware that India faces an unprecedented security challenges along our northern borders, especially Eastern Ladakh, where we have surprised the Chinese with a resolute response, equitable and proportional build-up to deter China's aggressiveness and arrogance. And this is owed to a very committed, dedicated, professional armed forces. China has gone wrong in its assessment of India's response and resolve. The Chief of the Defence Staff, the Vice Chief of the Air Staff, being here is indeed an honor, and we need to work together. We have a platform today where we have the armed forces, we have the academia, we have the scientific community, we have the industry, all on the same platform to ensure convergence, congruence and coordination on our way forward and to ensure the national policy of Atmanirbharta and self-reliance in defense manufacturing. So this platform is there for all to work together. I would request the armed forces to give out detail their requirements, what they expect, what they want, both in the near to mid-term and the long term. I would request the scientific community to give us the technologies which are there, and the industry mainly to give us the capacities, their capabilities, and also their concerns. So we move together as one and ensure a pragmatic way forward after the end of 2 days. So need is to build an combat effective and cost effective armed forces and air and missile defense in particular. So that's a challenge for all of us present out here. And I also thank General Arora from the IMR for having put this together. Thank you very much, sir. We will be discussing over the next 2 days, and I will not stand in between the distinguished panel out here, and I will hand over to General Bipin Rawat, the first Chief of Defence Staff of the Indian Armed Forces, to give the inaugural address. Thank you very much, sir, for sparing your time. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. General Vinod Bhatia, Director CENJOWS, Air Marshal Arora, Vice Chief of Air Staff, other officers from the services fraternity, veterans, representatives from the Defence Research and Development Organization, from the Ordnance Factories Board, Ministry of Defence, participants from the industry, ladies and gentlemen. A very good morning to each one of you. Today, I feel it is indeed an honor and privilege to be delivering this inaugural address at this webinar. Webinars, I think, have become the order of the day because of COVID. So we'll have to learn to live with this kind of seminars and webinars that we'll have to continue with. The topic, Air and Missile Defense India 2020, with the underlying theme of integrating new technologies and optimizing legacy systems. Well, it's a very contemporary subject, and I wish to compliment CENJOWS for putting this together. Armed forces today are on the cusp of transformation through integration. Modernization in line with the changing global security environment necessitates utmost optimization of resources for greater combat effectiveness and efficiency. And I am sanguine that fruitful discussions on the subject will bring about the realization of the desired objectives that you would have set for yourself at this webinar. The world today has moved into a new and unsettling geopolitical phase. It is not just multipolar, but multi-conceptual, which creates new risks and uncertainties, resulting in rising military tensions, economic disruptions, and destabilization of international relations. The rising powers are contending for new roles and seeking to reshape the rules that govern the world order. We are witnessing seismic changes in geopolitics shaped by a nation-first approach and, of course, geoeconomics. The impact of COVID-19 will also be pervasive, affecting all segments of our lives, including politics, society, governance, economy, trade, and development. The disease's most profound and consequential impact, however, will be felt in the ability to reshape the global order. It is seemingly becoming evident that, like the Great Depression, the Second World War, and the 2008 financial crisis, this pandemic will also be a watershed, world-changing event of our times, the contours of which, as of now, remain uncertain. Within this geopolitical influx, the choices are not zero-sum for India. A global outreach through multilateral forums and strategic partnerships for economic development signifies India's interests. India values its emerging relationship with the United States of America, yet cherishes the traditional relationship with our old friend Russia. With both these powers, we share a mature and robust defense and security framework. Emerging developments like the US-China competition and trade war, the rise of G20 and BRICS, escalating US-Iran tensions, the emerging regional cooperation and economic partnership, and the Quad in the Indian Ocean and the Indo-Pacific region, coupled with Russia's attempts to regain the Eurasian landmass, the rise of Germany and Brexit in Europe, have become the apparent symptoms of a complex, ongoing world order that put India on the historical crossroad of both opportunities and challenges which we must exploit to our advantage. While the external situation is largely in our favor, India will need to navigate with skill so as to maximize our national interests. In doing so, leveraging our growing military-to-military relationships will be useful in securing competitive advantage. The pervasiveness of information and pace of technology change is transforming the very nature and character of warfare and providing innovative ways to execute new forms of warfare in the non-contact domain, that includes information operations, stealing of intellectual property rights, economic inducements, and such like issues, all backed up by clever propaganda and fake news to justify a nation's actions. The pursuit of disruptive technologies like artificial intelligence, robotics, nanotechnology, big data analysis, drones, autonomous unmanned systems, militarization of space, cyber warfare, quantum communications, along with manipulation of social media, are leading to the new threats and further complicating the security environment, not just in the region, but the world over. Enabling technologies such as artificial intelligence and quantum computing are being used to produce sophisticated autonomous weapons which will accelerate the pace of combat, potentially with destabilizing consequences. While these technologies are constantly reshaping the contours of the threat, they provide us an opportunity to acquire new enabling military capabilities for strategic advantage. The armed forces must therefore be prepared for a future conflict with this changed character. Let us now look at the contours of the emerging air threat, which is relevant to the topic under discussion today. Well, let me tell you that aircraft is now a system of systems. It is a multi-role system which can be used for any kind of warfare. It is not just an offensive weapon, it is also involved in air defense, countering air operations. So with this kind of aircraft, which are now in the fourth and fifth generation, I think the changing nature of air warfare itself needs to be addressed. And in doing so, I would like to highlight that missiles and aircraft complement each other. While there is a need for both, but the complementary utilization of both these systems need to be analyzed. The range of air-based threat is expanding with considerable speed and intensity. The threat is becoming multidimensional and multimodal. Fourth and fifth generation aerial war machines today are multi-role, as I said, detection resident, packed with host of onboard sensors, with smart electronic warfare suit for survivability, and are armed to the teeth with long-range, smart, and intelligent munitions, including the PGMs, stealth technology, and the teaming of manned aircraft with unmanned systems are the two most important technological innovations for future combat. And here actually I would like to quote Francis Fukuyama. He says, the nations where the population is innovative is kind of one that looks at future warfare from a different perspective and not just from the study of physics and mathematics will emerge victorious. And I think therefore we have to now start looking at innovative means of developing technologies which will help us in future warfare. And the same applies to air warfare. The military value of ballistic missiles will increase over the next decade with the introduction of hypersonic gliders as alternative warfare warheads capable of evading increasingly powerful missile defense systems. Next generation hypersonic cruise missiles are being developed with a focus on low detectability and enhanced survivability. Unmanned systems create new military opportunities for both state as well as non-state actors. These highly potent platforms are able to conduct long-distance reconnaissance flights and in the case of armed drones, make immediate use of the reconnaissance results for attacks. Low-resource armed forces in particular see an advantage in the use of unarmed vehicles as a comparatively inexpensive air force. Examples range from the Nigerian forces employing armed UAVs in 2018 to attack Boko Haram's logistic bases to Azerbaijani forces using a UAV program to self-detonate on impact during the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict in the same year. The asymmetric advantage created by UAVs are being seen as opportunities by non-state actors. Affordable, commercially available and user-friendly UAVs have therefore become a chosen arm or a chosen weapon for the non-state actors, which many non-state actors ranging from the Islamic State to extremists in the Philippines to drug cartels in Mexico and of course our friends across in Pakistan have come to understand. Future defense systems must be qualitatively and quantitatively capable of dealing with the new threats. The increasing standoff ranges of the weapon systems often triggers the debate to target the weapon platform or the weapon itself. In this era of multi-dimensional technology, we must focus on constant innovations and modern technological solutions to keep ourselves ahead of our adversaries. The air defense capability of our armed forces is on the cusp of modernization with acquisition of the Rafale aircraft, the S-400 BMD system, Akash weapon system, and progressive replacement of the legacy air defense weapon systems. However, keeping in mind the macroeconomic parameters and socio-economic requirement of our country, we have to work through the budgetary constraints by finding the best solutions to new acquisitions and optimizing or upgradation of legacy systems. In the emerging security paradigm, India's security would be maintained not as hitherto on the IB, LC or the LAC alone, but in the strategic space of the extended neighborhood and the strategic frontier. The armed forces should be structured in a manner that they provide the operational flexibility to pursue wider strategic objectives. Defense reforms were thus overdue, and this process of reform, the first green shoots are the creation of the Office of the Chief of Defence Staff and creation of the Department of Military Affairs. With this, we have now come into a transformation mode, and the military is now into the central edifice of the Government of India. The restructuring of the Ministry of Defence gives us the opportunity to embrace forward-looking strategies to seize and exploit the moment and set in motion a dynamic transformation process. This in turn calls for evolving structures and systems for enhanced effectiveness and responsiveness. The subdomains would include the need to transform the way we train to fight and develop our war-fighting doctrine, the way we do acquisition, the way we maintain our assets, the way we conduct our operational logistics, and so on and so forth. Each change that we undertake must have a multiplier effect toward the end result that we aspire for. And the present moment gives us the opportunity to bring doctrinal coherence in the Indian military's future roadmap by improving inter-services synergy and balanced civil-military relations. And therefore the keystone to jointness here is integration and modernization. In line with the changing security environment and utmost optimization of resources generating greater combat effectiveness. Toward this end, the need is to transform operations from loosely linked service-dominated operations into fully integrated, mutually supportive joint operating systems wherein the full potential of our combat power can be realized. We have long land borders with varied terrain configuration and two major seaboards. The system that we adopt has to be best suited for the optimum management of both external and internal security challenges. We are presently in advanced stages of forming up the contours of the structures and processes required for the transformation, and we all will witness its manifestations in the near future. This transformation will have to be executed in a phased manner, wherein the inception stage, we are looking at creation of Air Defense Command, the Maritime Command, followed by the Integrated Joint Commands, and finally, of course, the Logistics Command. The basic issue is to look at the unity of effort so that we are able to employ the services, the strength, the power that we possess in our three services in a joint integrated manner to our advantage. I would like to specifically talk about the Integrated Aerospace Defense Command that we are working in a very timely manner. The IAF is primarily responsible for the air defense of our nation. However, respective services have their integral air resources to thwart air threat against their assets. This results, despite a conscious effort to integrate the air defense resources of sister services, in multiplicity of weapons on common threats and suboptimal use of these finite resources. With quantum increases in users of airspace to include aircraft, helicopters, unmanned aerial platforms, and long-range vectors, which include the artillery guns. And now, of course, you also have these quadcopters and tactical UAVs, all of which use the airspace, not to forget the attack helicopters and surveillance helicopters that we have. And very soon you may find unmanned helicopters also coming into the horizon. Therefore, the flexible use of airspace will have to be the norm to optimally utilize this space. Suitable structures and standard operating procedures will have to be evolved to resolve conflicting requirements of users in near real time. Effective air defense in such an environment has necessitated conduct of operations under a single, unified and integrated control. Space-based support systems will be essential to augment and enhance operational and strategic combat capacities. Effective and efficient C4I2 and network-centric warfare will require exploitation of aerospace to include military satellite systems, anti-satellite weapon systems, and space-based defensive systems. It shall be imperative to integrate essential elements of ISRO, DRDO, and their associated agencies, along with our aerospace requirements. Suitable structures for the same therefore need to be evolved and placed under the aerospace defense theatre. Seamless integration of surveillance and communication resources of the three services is becoming increasingly essential for evolving a composite real-time air situation picture and real-time passage of information for target designation and engagement. Common protocols will have to be established, suitably aligned with formulated SOPs. A study on the Integrated Aerospace Defense Command is presently underway to prepare the roadmap for integration of all existing air defense resources. In case we do not go ahead with this and integrate the systems, I dare say we may see fratricide in the battlefield in the years ahead, because it will be difficult to identify friend from foe if we are not on a common operating procedure, if we do not have common communication systems, if we do not have fast means of communications to identify friend from foe. And therefore, it is becoming increasingly important to integrate all the systems that use the airspace. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, I would say that there is no magic fix, and thus a roadmap for the future is being put in place within time-bound milestones. Gentlemen, I have attempted to highlight a few of the challenges that we face, and I am sanguine that many of these will be deliberated upon in greater detail, and a very constructive feedback would be generated at the end of this webinar. I thank you all for having given me this opportunity to be present here, and a very good Jai Hind to all of you.
Thank you to the Chief of Defence Staff, General Bipin Rawat, for his inaugural address. It has given us a strategic guidance. He's given us the way forward, what to do, and thank you for detailing the geostrategic, the geopolitical, and the geotechnological domains in the emerging world order post COVID-19. We will take on the things forward as you have directed on the integrated aerospace defense command, integrating all systems. Whatever you have said will form the basis of our discussions and the way forward for the next 2 days. And we intend coming out with a pragmatic implementable document thereafter, which will forward to you. And thank you for also telling us about the office of CTS and the DMA. I think is the first step towards transformation of the Indian Armed Forces from a military force to a military power. And the indicator is there when the government talks about the negative list being propagated on the recommendation of the DMA, when the Finance Minister says the 16th of May that the defense reform industry have the approval of the Office of the DMA. So these are indicators of the weight which the DMA has in the ministry and the government. Thank you very much, sir, for your inaugural address. Thank you very much. I now request Air Marshal
Thank you, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. Grateful. I now request Air Marshal H.L. Arora, the Vice Chief of the Air Staff, to deliver the keynote address.
General Bipin Rawat, Chief of the Defence Staff, General Vinod, Bhatia, Director CENJOWS, dignitaries and distinguished members participating in this webinar cum virtual expo, a very good morning to you all. Thanks to information technology, despite travel restrictions, we are virtually joined by experts from CENJOWS, DRDO, OFB, Ministry of Defence and industry, apart from the main stakeholders on the subject, the officers of the armed forces. I consider it to be my privilege to be part of this scholarly gathering for the inaugural session of this webinar on Air and Missile Defense India 2020. I must compliment Director CENJOWS for having chosen such a pertinent and contemporary subject, especially in view of the situation that we are facing on our northern borders. Given the fact that we share borders with expansionist regimes with treacherous design to destabilize India, developing a formidable ground and air defense remains an inescapable necessity. Doklam and Balakot episodes earlier and the ongoing Galwan confrontation with the Dragon during this COVID-19 pandemic amply demonstrates that ground and air defense would continue to remain a 24/7 activity for all of us. Victory in any future war would depend on the synergized application of war machinery in a highly informatized environment. The battlefield in the future, in my opinion, would be volatile, uncertain, ambiguous, and constantly changing. The battle speed will be expanded and lethal due to extensive use of precision standoff weapons and network operating environment created with artificial intelligence. Further, the complexity of the battle space would increase due to asymmetric nature of threat, blurring into sub-conventional scenario. As far as air defense environment is concerned, threat of Saudi Aramco oil refinery type of attack by swarm drones has enlarged the threat paradigm from the envelope of conventional aircraft to include threat emanating from low RCS, low speed, small size drones, all the way up to hypersonic ballistic missiles. The traditional three dimensions of land, sea, and air have progressively transformed into 5 dimensions of warfare with inclusion of space and electromagnetic spectrum. The contours of warfare have transformed from mechanical, informatized warfare with focus on system versus system fight within space, EW, and cyber domains, as these would significantly impact the lethality in the other classical domains. Management of information would be of significant importance in the future high-tech battlefield and the side that retains information superiority would have distinct advantage over its adversary. Armed forces that are weaker in technology would face lethal and overwhelming challenges. Therefore, the armed forces need to plan and prepare to fight in all 5 dimensions of warfare with compression in time domain so as to minimize the OODA loop. Towards this, artificial intelligence needs to be suitably garnered by the defense forces for supporting the decision matrix, with multiple options being presented to the leadership, both at tactical and strategic leader. Further, based on the response of the leadership, the AI system should be smart enough to self-learn and present better options to the user. We in the armed forces are progressing well towards harnessing the benefits of achieving superiority in the information domain. The surveillance of the entire Indian airspace has been networked successfully through the indigenous ISCCS network, enabling centralized command and control and decentralized execution. IF is also in the process of operationalizing secure airborne data links to achieve complete network-centric operations. Adequate focus is also being given to acquire electronic warfare equipment for all weapon platforms to dominate information domain. With the induction of Rafale aircraft integrated with state-of-the-art missiles like the Mika currently and Meteor in the near future, Su-30 with indigenous Astra, Mirage ITI again with Mika, and LCA with Derby, IAF is well equipped with lethal airborne platforms to defeat the ill designs of our adversary. For across the spectrum enhancement in warfighting capability, the current generation weapon platforms are already being upgraded, and the Su-30 upgrade program has also been initiated. A host of indigenous weapons are under integration and would provide lethal capabilities to the current fleet. As far as our adversaries are concerned, the standoff capability of their air-launched munition has increased significantly and can now achieve standoff ranges of up to 100 kilometers in very precise manner. Further, advancements in SSMs have increased the lethality and accuracy. With the advent of multiple re-entry vehicles and multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicles, the efficacy of the best missile defense system is being put to test. Development of hypersonic glide vehicles has further enhanced this challenge and is less susceptible to anti-ballistic countermeasures owing to its unpredictable flight path and maneuverability. Thus, the World War II era concept of defending selected vital areas and vital points by legacy short-range missile systems or close-in weapon systems is now irrelevant. There is an urgent need for us to change our mindset on air defense concepts. The conventional methodology of onion peel type of deployment of air defense systems would result in extensive and suboptimal utilization of scarce resources and would fail to provide requisite protection. Fortunately for us, over a period of time, the ground-based air defense capability has got tremendous boost with the operationalization of a number of new missile and radar systems. Further, newer systems are being inducted like Ashwini, Ashlesha, Arudra radars, MRSAMs, and S400 SCW systems. These would further bolster our air defense setup. In addition, improved VSHORADs as well as close-in weapon systems are also expected to augment our AD capability. Apart from this, the R&D of indigenous version of LRSAM is also on. In the future, with the indigenous BMD system, we can work towards tackling contemporary ballistic missile threats. Therefore, any attempt to define the current AD philosophy by merely extrapolating the legacy systems and associated concept of operations would be counterproductive. There's a need for us to redefine our air defense philosophy as a whole and move forward with more offensive and unified area defense concept, wherein the long range and the medium range SAMs would undertake early and multiple engagements of aerial platforms, and the point defense of critical vital assets would be left to short range systems capable of engaging drones as well as ammunition. All these aspects, like the CDS has mentioned, would be addressed in the current study of the creation of Air Defense Command under the Indian Air Force by integrating AD resources of all the three services. It will also look into integration of Akash Tir of Army and Trigun of Navy into the ISCCS to present an high order of battlefield transparency to aid in decision making and flexible use of airspace. As far as friends from the industry are concerned, in terms of air defense, our next focus would be to look at lightweight, highly mobile, weather-protected, ruggedized, medium and long-range sensors as well as shooters that can be fielded at altitudes of 4.5 to 5 kilometers and capable of operating in extremely low temperatures. These systems should not only be capable of neutralizing conventional aerial platforms, but also neutralize low RCS, small size standoff munition. At the other end of the spectrum, the need would be to focus on tackling threats from low RCS, low altitude drones operating independently or in swarms. To conclude, skirmishes and low intensity conflicts are the new reality for armed forces since the line between peace and war is continuously blurring. Therefore, we have to be ever prepared to counter conventional as well as sub-conventional aerial threats. I am confident that this virtual expo would give us an excellent opportunity to analyze the challenges that lie ahead in the air defense domain, as well as new technologies that would influence this field. I have no doubts that with such learned speakers who are specialists in their fields lined up over the 2 days period, there would be a sound professional debate on topics that is so dear to us in blue uniform. I would take this opportunity to convey my best wishes to the organizers and all the panelists to make this webinar a grand success. Thank you and Jai Hind.
May I kindly request General Naresh Chand to give his talk, please.
Good morning. Our first CDS, General Rawat, Vice Chief of Air Staff, Admiral Arora, veterans, serving officers, officers from DRDO, PSUs, Ordnance Factory Board, civil industry, ladies and gentlemen. I have been requested to give the theme address for this seminar or webinar. I was not very clear on this, so Ravi told me to carry on as I feel it is appropriate. So I will touch upon some aspects of which the seminar is going to go through. Now, first point I'd like to mention is that AD is a system and which includes the sensors, the weapons and the battle management system. It is one of the first ones to be there. When an officer from the RAF, he created a system for Second World War, chain home system. So after that, we have been carrying on with that system and we added to it with our resources, whatever we could create. Now, AD is by service, it is by organization, it is like this, that it is inherent to be a joint system. So therefore, it's welcome to have integrated air defense command. However, certain aspects which I feel will be important to take note of, I will mention when we come to that subject. Now, the first subject I think is taken is the air threat. As far as air threat is concerned, I mean, it is a dogma for the services. No armed force exists without a threat. Now, as far as air threat is concerned, the CDS has given a very good overview, and later on, again, the subject will be covered. But I'll just give very briefly my experience or our experience from the Army Air Defense. After 71 war, when we did very well, I'm talking about the AD, with their 60 guns. That time, we had got 4 battle honors and some gallantry awards, etc. So it was decided to modernize the air defense. Air defense artillery, that time it was called. So that, and all this was achieved mostly by L60 guns. So after that, there was a study how to project the future air threat. That was a task very difficult to carry on this sort of reading. So we went to many agencies, and finally we went to the JIC, being chaired by Mr. Subramaniam. As you're aware, that he was the domain of our strategic policy and architect of our nuclear policy. A very learned and very, very informal person. That time the JIC was in the annexe of Rashtrapati Bhavan. We went to him and the study group, and there we saw that he was sitting in his bleeding madras, with shirt, very informal, with sandals, surrounded by a mountain of books, periodicals, and papers. And he gave us few points. First point he mentioned was that this is, I'm talking about 72, 73, that the air threat will be all weather. Second aspect was the helicopter threat will increase. Third was the increase of the UAVs in a big way. That time they're not really come to India except for the target system, which the AD had and the Air Force had. We had KDR-25 and the Air Force had Chuka 2. And last point he said that whatever latest systems which are there in the world, they will come to the subcontinent 10, 15 years later. So after that, we formulated our threat, and then we projected our requirement, and the systems which are still existing after, I think, about 40 years or so, like OSA, AK, Shilka, and Quadrat, they are still there. I'm mainly talking about TB. L-70 gun is still in service, which came in 64, 65 in the last century. So our modernization process has been slow because of lack of funds, etc. Now, other aspect of air threat I would mention is that informally in the AD, we divide the air threat into 3 parts. One is the qualitative, understood, quantitative, and the attack profiles. Because attack profiles give us, because we have to destroy the platform before it launches its weapon, and now as the Vice Chief said, 100 kilometers, so that range we don't have, that only Air Force can do. Otherwise, the aim is that, or we deploy so far ahead that we take on the platform. So that is what is attack profiles. So with this, I will close here on the air threat and come to the next aspect of emerging technologies. Now, there are a lot of fancy technologies have been mentioned. For example, directed energy weapons. Now, we are quite far away from them at the moment, and like laser weapons. US has just in 14 they put a laser gun on one of their ships, and USS Ponce, and they're using it for short range, like surface boats, etc., and by destroying their engines, so that they become a dead floating item on board. And there are reports that Turkey and Iran have got some laser weapons. But my way of looking at it is a simple thing that let us select one weapon system from ground point of view and take what is it achieved. For example, I've selected PAC-3, that Patriotic Advanced Capability 3. Now, that is a weapon which started development in sometime in the 70s as SAM-D. And after that, it carried on. And as Patriot, it was earlier versions were launched in the war in Kuwait with the senior Bush as the president of US. And it was to counter the Scud missiles. It was not very successful. Things were covered up. But now with the PHE-3 and the heart of its radar, the phased array passive radar, which does all this, it does surveillance, it does detection, it does identification, and it does destruction, guiding the missile on. So it is a wonderful technology to emulate if we can do that much. Now the missile itself doesn't have a fuse, as you are all aware, but it has hit to kill with an active radar seeker. That is the type of confidence and accuracy which is there, and which the US Army is equipped with, and it high to medium threat it caters for. So that is the type of technology. If we can deliver, it will be a very, very good thing. I think we can do it because LRD, the radar division of DRDO, has some very good successes. And it's not because I've served there a short time, but they have managed to make phased array radar for Akash. And further, they will develop, I'm sure, if we put in all the resources and give them opportunity and also give them adequate rewards to develop such expensive systems. Now, as far as technologies are concerned, now we come to the next aspect of integrated battle. As I said earlier, it is inherent in AD to be integrated by all three services. Now, the present system which exists is that Army AD is there. That is, I think, one of the only dedicated corps which a youngster or Jawan joins at the beginning in AD and he retires from there. His ethos, his battle culture, his technology knowledge, everything is all the time air defense. So this such resource has to be handled very carefully when we integrate so that it is not disrupted very fast in the maybe some turf war start and it gets covered up or it's a thought is relegated. So this aspect is the integration, and of course integration is very good, and it will also cover up duplication of effort like shoulder-fired missiles with all the three services. It may happen that after their due diligence is given by the command, they will find that all did not have the same weapon. I have seen OSAIG deployed Srinagar Air Base. Maybe a track system is not required for a static task. So these are things which will come out of this. But the main point which is there is that TBA is an area which is a matter of concern. Now, for example, we have been struggling with this thing, and it is a Corps Commander's battle. The range of weapons which Corps Commander has in terms of UAVs, in terms of missiles, in terms of guns. So his area of influence is increasing. Now, the airspace becomes very dense with his own systems, army system, and on that the Air Force is there. So we have to have a very, very dynamic control system and management system for TBA. I'll give you one small example of how the battle changes. In 91, some veterans will remember that in Sechan, the Pakis decided to come in the southern part of the glacier. I was there that time. And they repelled and all. And when a patrol of infantry battalion went there, they found that their troop build-up is taking place. So the commander from Pattapur immediately reacted. He moved mortars to the Chalonki area and fired. AD section of Igla was taken up. Their brigade commander was flying in the helicopter. That was destroyed. And the commander was killed, and large number of casualties of Pakistan took place. Now the air rep was there in Pattapur. He was upset he was not taken in the group, which is right. He should have been taken in the group because there could have been repercussions from the Pakistan Air Force. But the fact was there was no time to check back. As soon as we saw a helicopter, the commander had to take action. So this sort of situation will happen. And when we propose our integration, we have to cater for these things because the air battle is very time sensitive, extremely time sensitive. And if you do not take the decision in time, things will go out of control. Other thing is that in the AD artillery, Army Air Defense, we have NCOs managing the weapons. For example, Havaldar will be the number one of Afghan. So we have to cater for his capability aspects when action is taken or he is asked to fire and things like that. So, and also we must remember, my last point on this is that during 671 war and subsequently, the current system has done us well. And after integration is done, these aspects should be taken into consideration so that we don't disrupt whole thing and try to reinvent the wheel for a system which already is working extremely efficiently. Now the next aspect is the CNR system, which is, I consider the Air Force has got a very good system in place, IAAC, and that system with our CNR system, which is still not fully matured, they have to handshake very well in that. And I'm sure this is being looked into it. And in a very short period of time, we should be able to integrate these systems and at a national level, along with all stakeholders and users. So that point has to be pushed by the command, because so far it is everybody doing usually their own service thing. So the central push is not there on these aspects. Now, as far as new technologies have come in, so artificial intelligence is there, nanotechnology is there, and maybe we can use them. China is far ahead in artificial intelligence. Excuse me. So this is the way I look at integration is concerned. And the CNR system is there. I won't dwell much because a lot of details will be given later on by this. Now, the other last point I have is the Atmanirbharta, that is self-reliance. This is not a new thing, as far as I know. Since we joined service, we've been hearing indigenous. And if you veterans will recollect, there was a technical development establishment from this DRDO came out, and its plan was, and the PSU was set up. Ordnance factory was already there before independence. Some ordnance factories are maybe 100 years old, established by the Britishers. Now, the aim was that DRDO develops and ordnance factories or PSUs manufacture these platforms. But it didn't work out that idly. But we had great successes. That I can't deny. We have the fighter aircraft, we have attack helicopters, we have strategic missile systems, we have nuclear-powered submarine. So these things are carrying on very well. But the core technologies, for example, aero engine, the Kaveri project is there, that has not succeeded that well. And control systems are there. There are other factors. Active seeker was another area which was a drawback. So like that, there's certain core technologies which have to be identified and developed, and if required, got it from abroad in whatever way it is possible. So China has made such drastic leaps in their achievements in technology that it is amazing that in the last 20 years where they have gone in cyber warfare, in artificial intelligence, in the fighter aircraft, for example, is the aircraft carrier which they got. They just took a carrier which was incomplete from USSR and Russia, and they brought it, and they were that time telling continuously that it is going to be like Disneyland for the children. And I've been following that complete thing for last so many years. And after that, they suddenly came out with Leping, and they got an aircraft carrier. Second one is also being there. So they probably have getting technology over the table, under the table, but they have been very successful. The UAVs are excellent. Their gun system, the missile system, and they have reorganized their armed forces, making it a little more streamlined to save manpower. So that is one way of getting technology and what. So when we do Atmanirbharta, we have to consider all these aspects. If we try to reinvent the wheel again, it will be very difficult. Now, some people will have views that it takes a lot of time for them to develop anything. But I just gave the example of SAMD. That since 70s, it is now matured. after 30 years, 35 years, when they had such a head start as a missile system, which we do not have. Neither we have that type of funds that is there. So as far as development is self-reliance is concerned, only difference between indigenous and now is that the Prime Minister is strong. They have given a lot of energy into this thing. And if we follow that line, and we should be able to deliver and meet our requirement in due course. Now, in that list of 101 or 100 items which is there, which is like a denial list, is like putting a person in a swimming pool and he does not swim. If he swims, he survives. If he learns, if he doesn't, he'll drown. So that sort of thing is a very good approach. And I feel that it's a leap of faith by defense forces, the ordnance factories, DRDOs, and the private industry. Now, as far as private industry is concerned, I've been watching that from the time Kelkar committee report came to have a level playing field for everybody. The PSUs are favored by the government. They get endless funds for development. There are long delays in this in their development area. Every year they ask for more funds and it carries on and on, which a private company won't be able to do. So maybe the government, if they want the private enterprise to come in a big way, they may have to make a model where they, like Americans, they give two companies development funds, they compete like they did for littoral ship and Northrop Grumman and Lockheed Martin. And they developed, one was selected, the other one also later on selected, and they got some business. So this sort of thing has to be seen the business model, the economy model for the private thing. And if I'm sure if the private industry and the DRDO's laboratories, which have got tremendous knowledge and background, and the OFB's capabilities. For example, there is no barrel manufactured anywhere else in India. Only in Kanpur, OFB has got the technology, trained manpower, and the infrastructure. So no point making it again ammunition manufacture in a big way in Kamaria and other places. Testing facilities for them. So all these aspects strengthen each other. It has to be reinforced of the private this thing, and there the government must push forward in a big way. MSMEs are there. 2 industrial corridors have been made in Tamil Nadu and UP to push all these things. So I feel if all this is done, we should be able to make our own weapons and be self-reliant to a great extent. Knowing that, I would say that let this seminar be the echo chamber of ideas, may 1,000 ideas bloom, but the fact is that they should be all doable and cost-effective and contribute to the nation in a big way. With this, I end here. Jain, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, General Naresh. Thank you, sir. Thank you very candid views. I also must thank the Vice Chair of the Air Staff, Air Marshal H.S. Arora. I was off air that time. Thank you so very much. It's been lovely just listening to your views. And integration and jointness is definitely the way forward. We got to move as one, and that is something which we have to achieve at the earliest and in a very cost-effective way. So thank you very much. I know we're running out of time, so I just hand over to General Jauhar. He'll be speaking to us and helping synergize between the industry and the services. Over to General Jauhar.
Thank you very much, sir. General Bipin Rawat, Chief of Defence Staff, Air Marshal H.S. Arora, Vice Chief of Air Staff, General Vinod Bhatia, Director CENJOWS, General Naresh Chand, service and retired officers, my partners from the industry and academia, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to all of you. I feel greatly honored to be part of this Air and Missile Defence India webinar 2020 and privileged, if not overwhelmed, to be amidst this illustrious panel, especially the Chief of Defence Staff, because it was him who gave the much needed impetus to this initiative of the Army Design Bureau. At the outset, I would also like to thank General Bhatia and the team of CENJOWS for giving us an opportunity to share the perspective of Army Design Bureau. We deal with technology. We deal with nurturing and developing technology and indigenization. So that is what will be the focus of my talk. And that would be the outreach and enterprise towards the national aim of achieving self-reliance in defense. The current times have been immensely challenging for all of us, be it the services, industry, or the academia. If I were to take a familiar refrain, necessity is the mother of all inventions. So has this adversity generated the much needed thrust towards Atmanirbharta or self-reliance. And frankly, being in this chair, it's been absolutely amazing to see the coming together of all the stakeholders to enthusiastically take on this challenge. Indian armed forces today are rapidly transforming to meet the complex future challenges. And for that, the need is for the niche future technologies. If we talk about air and missile defense systems, these are systems laden with high technologies, be it missile seeker technology, quantum and distributed array radars, artificial intelligence for IFF, or for that matter, even decision making. The acquisition of these future and state-of-art technologies has always proven to be a major challenge for a developing nation like ours, especially on three accounts. First is the cost. Technologies like these have heavy financial tag attached to them, and with ever-shrinking budget, this will always remain a challenge. Second is the technological relevance. As somebody said, technology doesn't grow linearly. They can change at an enormous pace and hence require concentrated and continued research and development to even remain relevant. And the third challenge and the foremost is the access to these technologies. They're either not readily available or those who have them do not want to share. So which is the only way to overcome these challenges is to develop and nurture these technologies, that is to say, build Indian solutions for Indian needs. Well, the Army Design Bureau, I'm proud to say, was conceived just to address this need. The Bureau functions as a single point of contact for the industry and academia in providing the user requirements and facilitating development of indigenous solutions. Not only is it mandated to strive for facilitating indigenous design, development, and manufacturing, but also to seek out capabilities and support research for developing technologies of the future. We must continue and do so to reach out to an ever-increasing number of defense industries, including MSMEs and startups, for collaboration towards realizing the technological needs of the services. We also established an intimate connect with our academic scholars and various technical institutes to benefit from their vast technological know-how. To bring in greater visibility with respect to future modernization technological requirements of the defense forces, a technological perspective and capability roadmap is available on the website. And this aims to assist the industry, the MSMEs, the startups to get a better insight of the futuristic needs of the armed forces. Now, taking a little bit of cue from how we operate, we generally look at two avenues. One, the ADB looks at the make category exclusively for indigenous design, development, and manufacturing of products for the industry. The second is to foster innovation, to tap the potential of the innovators, technocrats, professionals, academicians. By the way of the IDEX challenge under the Defense Innovation Organization, the Technology Development Fund in conjunction with the DRDO, and of course our own Army Technology Board, which aims to support research and innovation in niche technologies. Here I must also mention the importance that in-house ideas and innovations, which fosters in-house talent and gives the much needed capability from within our talent pool. To reach out the needs of a wider audience, we released 150 problem statements till date. And I must say, it has indeed been heartening to witness the enthusiasm with which our industry partners, entrepreneurs, academia, and to the extent even young college students have responded. The progress made is evident from the number of projects that we have now started. Under the Make to route, we are progressing projects amounting to upwards of 30,000 crores. That's all Make in India. And that we are happy to also announce that the first RFP was also of Army Air Defense, which got released recently, and the second RFP, hopefully, the very next week. To develop future technologies and innovations, we progress cases under the IDEX. We have 4 of them going on right now. We have 14 being pursued through the Technology Development Fund route and an equal number through the medium of Army Technology Board. We have gone ahead and entered into a memorandum of understandings with leading academic institutions for research and development of niche technologies. To provide a first-hand operational perspective to students, researchers, academia, from technical institutes and the members of defense industries, we have also organized a large number of visits to forward areas and field formation through medium of seminars and like this webinar, displays, demonstrations, We have endeavored to facilitate a free flow of ideas and bring together all the stakeholders under the same platform. But this is just the beginning. We need to now reinforce our focus on the emerging and disruptive technologies. I will list out 8 of them. They're data, artificial intelligence, autonomy, space, hypersonics, quantum, biotechnology, and materials. This is where we need to focus. The recent report of NATO on science and technology development over the next 20 years also characterizes these technologies to be intelligent, interconnected, distributed, and digital. They will individually or synergize together to have the potential and become revolutionary and disruptive. So an investment at this stage into developing these technologies or their subsets would empower the nation and the armed forces in the country. While the government and the Indian Army have clearly demonstrated our resolve to support indigenization and furtherance of that aim, we now are reaching out to work with the industry for them to demonstrate a persistence and a greater investment in research and development, while we work with the technical institutions of academic excellence to undertake very critical research. That then would be the key for developing long-term and homegrown solutions. It's a collaborative and participatory effort, and we have to be primed for it. If anybody has an idea, a solution, we have the inclination. At the end, I would like to express my deep gratitude and best compliments to CENJOWS for providing this excellent opportunity, and look forward to getting more ideas, more suggestions at the end of this webinar to take forward more projects under the Make in India and Atmanirbhar scheme. Thank you and Jai Hind.
So on behalf of General Bhatia, I would like to thank all the participants, the Chief of Defence Staff, Vice Chief of Air Staff, General Naresh Chand and General Jauhar for having spared their time, given their valuable views for the audience, and having set the ball rolling for the subsequent sessions. Very nice of you. Sir, closing remarks?
My apologies. There have been some problems with the power today. Normally doesn't happen. We are a good society in the AWH in Greater Noida. But the power is going on and off, and I've been coming on and off, and my mobile didn't have the bandwidth. I thank you so very much for the inaugural session. My special thanks to General Rawat, the Chief of the Defence Staff, to Air Marshal Arora, the Vice Chief of the Army Staff, to General Naresh Chand, and to General Jauhar. Thank you very much. A very interesting session. We had very clear views. The clarity is there. The comprehension is there. You have shown us the way forward, and we intend taking it on from here. And I assure you that we'll come back to you with whatever we have gleaned from this next 2 days, and whatever the contributions are, we'll get to you. And anything that CENJOWS can do will always be done. Thank you so very much, and Jai Hind.